Tales of the Frog Prince, or Frog King, come in a few particular variants, such that you could choose your own beginning and your own ending from the most common of them, string them together with the customary middle portion, and make your own version as a result. So, once upon a time, in a faraway land, there was a princess who played with a golden ball beside an old well. Up she threw it and down it came, and she caught it time and again as it glittered in the light, until once she threw too high with an arc too long, and down it went with a splash into the water, sinking immediately beyond her sight. She sat and wept until a frog came croaking from the well, asking her what was wrong and if he might help. She told him of the golden ball, her greatest treasure, and how it was lost. He said he could retrieve it, for frogs may dive deep, but first he would have a promise of her, to do all he asked for a time. She agreed, of course, for the frog would stay there in the water and she need never return. So he dove down and retrieved the golden ball, and the princess ran away home, ignoring the frog calling after her. Or perhaps there was a dutiful daughter who journeyed to a healing well for a draught to cure an ailing parent, only to find the well dry. Despairing her misfortune, she sat by the edge and lowered the bucket, hoping for even a drop of moisture, only to draw up a lone frog, who asked her what was wrong, and if he might help. She told him of the magical properties of the well, and her ailing parent, and how she feared that if she did not return with the water, they would die. The frog told her not to worry, for he knew how to get the water in the well flowing again, and would do so. But in return, she must promise to do as he asked for a time. She agreed, for what else could she do, and what could a frog possibly want? So he dove down, and the water soon filled the well, and thinking now of nothing but bringing the healing water home, she filled her flask and away she ran, not hearing the frog calling after her. Or perhaps again, it was a beautiful maiden with a wicked and envious stepmother, who was forced to do all the hard and tiresome work around the house. The stepmother, wishing at last to rid herself of the girl entirely, or at least to set her such a task as she would fail and be worthy of punishment, gave her a sieve, and sent her to the well at World's End, with orders to return with it full, or else. Upon reaching the well, the girl tried to gather water, but it ran out of all the holes, and she bemoaned her misfortune, for she would surely be in trouble if she returned without it. A frog came out of the well, and asked her what was wrong, and if he might help. She told him of her stepmother and what she had demanded, and how impossible was the task. The frog told her not to worry, for he knew how she could achieve the impossible here, and in exchange for the knowledge, all he asked was a promise that she would do all he asked of her for a time. She agreed, for she didn't know what else to do, and he told her to layer moss in the sieve to stop the holes, and clay to seal it. She did this, and the sieve held water, and she went away home, the frog staying behind, for now. In any case, the girl returned home, and all was well or well enough until evening, when a knock sounded on the door. She went to it and opened it to the frog, then slammed it shut in a fright. Her father, or her parent, or her stepmother asked her who was outside. A frog, she said, and when they pressed her to know her fright, she explained to them the promise she had made. A promise must be kept, they replied, and made her open the door to the frog, allowing him inside. "Take me to your table, and let me sit upon your chair," the frog said, and the girl protested, but again the parent insisted. A promise made must be kept. So she was obliged to give the frog a seat at the table, and then to let him eat good food from her plate and drink from her cup. And whenever she resisted, she would be reminded a promise made must be kept. At last it grew late, and the frog wished to sleep, but only within the girl's own bed. And here the endings diverge once more. Perhaps the girl took the frog and, however disgusted, allowed him to sleep upon her pillow or at the foot of her bed in peace. Perhaps it was one night, or two, or three. In the time prescribed, however, one night the girl went to sleep with a frog and awoke to see a handsome prince, thanking her for breaking the curse upon him, for all that it required was for a maiden to allow him to sleep within her bed for that time of her own accord. Perhaps the frog slept there that night or two, and in the morning he indicated a nearby sword or axe, and as a final request to fulfill her promise, he asked her to cut off his head. Though she thought it strange, the girl finally agreed and did as he bid one last time, whereupon the frog was transformed into a handsome prince, grateful for breaking the curse upon him. Or perhaps the girl took the frog to her room and then, in anger and frustration at these constant demands, threw him against the wall, where, upon impact, he was transformed into a handsome prince. Undaunted by this violence, he laughed and thanked her for breaking the curse, and she apologized at once for her frustration and unkind treatment at the end. In all cases, they marry and go away to his homeland to be king and queen there, and live happily ever after.